Welcome to More Than a Muse podcast. My name is Sadie.
I'm Stauney, and happy Monday and happy November.
I know.
Shocked with how fast October went by.
Happy November. I'm super excited to be learning about a new artist today. Presented by Stauney.
I know. It might be a little bit of a shorter episode, but before we dive in, I wanted to ask if you've listened to Lily Allen's new album.
Not yet. And the reason why is because I know I need to give it the time, you know. I'm not looking to passively listen to this album while I'm working. I want to lock in when I listen to this new Lily Allen album with all of the things that I've heard about it.
Yeah.
I've heard clips. I truly can't wait for the moment. I think this weekend I have a free weekend and I'm going to listen to Lily Allen's album and I cannot wait.
I listened today and I was very blown away. I don't know what you would call it. Would it be considered a concept album if it's like telling the story from beginning to finish, or because it's not really a concept, it's her life? Then
I think you could. I guess I don't know what the rules are for calling something a concept album or not, but yeah, I can see the argument for it being one of it telling the story front to back. Did you like it?
It's very narrative. I did like it. It's hard to It's not really one that I think I'll go back to and pick songs from and be like, oh, this is my favorite. Sense. Because like I said, it kind of tells the story from beginning to end. So there's transcripts of phone calls and then conversations and so you can kind of tell what's happening and what happened the entire timeline of their relationship. So from basically when she left for London for work to when they ended and then after. So I don't think it'll be the kind of album that I'm ooh, this is a bop, but it was a good
that's
listen.
So fair.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's like a album that you would sit down and listen to front to back. But it totally makes sense that there's not a lot of standout singles per se on that.
No, not really. Although I did really like Non-Monogamummy.
Amazing.
It was a good one. Very catchy.
I've heard about the tea that the album spills.
Oh yeah, it spills a lot of tea.
I just listen. It's one of those things where I'm people, you gotta be careful. Being with someone and being not good to someone who is an artist. You know, artists are fearless people, and they are okay with sharing the narrative. And also, I mean, I know nothing about the full content of the album, but I also feel most songwriters are willing to take the fall of this is might make me look bad, but I don't care. I'm gonna say what really happened here.
I feel Lily Allen is a very controversial figure to begin with, and so I think going into it, she didn't really have anything to lose. And in a way,
interesting.
I think that kind of makes it more interesting.
Maybe it helped it work more?
Yeah, because you're okay, she literally does not care. She name drops. I don't know if it's the actual names, but there's plenty of names in there.
Yep. I've heard there's a song called Madeline, right?
Yep.
Yep. And goes over the rules of their open marriage?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
He asked for an open marriage. And she agreed to it because she wanted him to be happy. And then he broke the rules. So it's she talks about it. He was supposed to only sleep with strangers in hotel rooms, and money was supposed to be involved so that it would be impersonal. So basically, you're allowed to hire prostitutes or escorts, but you're not allowed to have an affair. And then come to find out he has an affair and they're playing tennis. And so that's one of the songs is tennis, because she's you're playing tennis with her. That's not a part of the rules.
No.
And she even says if it were just sex, I wouldn't be jealous. But you're playing tennis. You're not supposed to be having a relationship with her. Yeah. You're supposed to just have this open relationship within the rules that we established, and he broke them. It makes him look horrible.
Yeah, I was gonna say, ooh, yeah. Don't think this is the best PR cycle for him.
And right before Stranger Things finale comes out.
I think her
Not
timing is
great.
truly impeccable. She knows he's about to be the talk, and she says, let me put this out first.
Tell everyone about this.
I am curious if she gave him a heads up. Like, do you think that he knew this was going to happen, or did he wake up one day and say, oh, my reputation is over?
I don't know. She didn't really do a lot of PR for the album or anything,
yeah,
right?
I was like,
she
I don't think I saw any press.
Yeah, so
good way to do
I think she just kind of dropped it. And she hasn't released music in such a long time. I don't think he was expecting anything.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah, I can't wait to sit down and listen.
Yeah, it's honestly like pretty tragic because it sounds like they really did have like a good relationship until all of this happened. Or it's like as good of one as you can have before you find out that someone is not who you thought they were, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
He was friends with her kids and like all this stuff. So
I don't really know much about Lily Allen, but I'm excited to learn a lot, I think, when I listen to this album. So
no, it was an interesting listen for sure. And it kind of inspired this week's episode because I started like trying to Google women who have like publicly scorned past lovers because I was like, this is interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. And it kind of gave me some inspiration for future episodes. For one, I think we need to do a whole episode on the evolution of a breakup album because apparently this has like been a very historical thing, very storied from history's past to now. Yeah. So that's definitely on the list. But also helped me find a composer named Alma Mahler that we'll be talking about today. Did you learn about her at all? Well, her husband was also a composer. So you definitely
oh my gosh.
Mahler. Mahler.
I'm so glad that you beat me to her. I feel like she's been on my list forever. So this is perfect, actually.
Good. Yeah, I haven't done a composer before, but then I found her and I was like, okay, yes, we're talking about her. Amazing. One of the things that I'm most excited to kind of talk about with her is that there is this guy who read her obituary, and then American satirist and like comedian Tom Lehrer described her obituary as the juiciest, spiciest, raciest obituary he had ever read. And it prompted him to write the ballad Alma, portraying her as the loveliest girl in Vienna, the smartest as well. All modern women are jealous of her for bagging Gustav and Walter and Franz, each of whom came under her spell. And the whole song, and basically her whole life, has been around these famous men that she married. She had many lovers, and she married 3 of the most famous men in the art world, Gustav and Walter and Franz. And so it's become kind of this thing where like she's a very famous muse because of all these famous men that she interacted with. And it kind of comes across as like every single man who met her just like fell in love with her.
Fell in love, naturally.
Yeah. And so she's much more famous for the men whose lives she was in rather than her own life. But her life is so fascinating and so storied and layered and everything that I thought it was well worth visiting, obviously. However,
absolutely,
a little bit light on the subject matter. So this is a very brief introduction into who she was as a person.
I feel like this is one of those people that like you're either writing a dissertation or you're just like touching the tip of the iceberg.
But there's a lot of like things on her. There's a novel that's been written about her life called Ecstasy.
What a scandalous title.
Yeah.
Ecstasy. Oh my goodness.
And there's also a bunch of her letters have been published. I think she has like a biography or an autobiography of some kind, but like part of it she contributed to, and then like it got finished. So there's a lot of things out there to learn more about her. It's just very hard to find it on the internet. So we're going to do the best we can today. Alma Maria Schindler was born August 31st, 1879 in Vienna, Austria, which was then Austria-Hungary, to a famous landscape painter and his wife. She was tutored at home and brought up in the Catholic Church. And in 1886, Crown Prince Rudolph actually found interest in her father's paintings and commissioned him to take a trip with his family to the Adriatic coast to produce landscape paintings. So they spent a few years there before her father passed away. And after her father's death, she focused on piano. She studied composition and counterpoint with Joseph Leiber, who was a blind organist who introduced her to a great deal of literature. She was mostly homeschooled. She was sent to school at 15 for a short while, but only spent a few months there before returning. And as she grew older, she actually had a case of childhood measles that left her with decreased hearing, but didn't seem to impact her musical ability at all. She was a very, very accomplished pianist. Max Burkhardt, a friend of her father's and the director of the Vienna's Burgtheater, became her mentor and taught her more about piano and composition loosely. And then on her 17th birthday, he gave her 2 laundry baskets full of books, continuing her education that she had at home. Her father remarried a man named Karl Moll, and together she was able to meet Gustav Klimt through him. And Gustav Klimt is a very famous artist. He is the one who painted the painting The Kiss. It has like the dress that looks like a mosaic, and there's like a guy kissing a woman. If you look at it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm trusting it.
Yeah. Very, very famous painting. And he allegedly was her first kiss. Yeah, which is just the beginning of all of this.
Okay, I'm interested by that because with the time period, like, I feel like that wasn't like a huge like first kiss society, you know? Like,
definitely not.
It seemed to me that like that would be kind of scandalous.
Her life is definitely,
I mean,
it has lots of scandal.
The novel written about her is literally called Ecstasy, so
yeah. There's a lot of scandal that follows her. I wouldn't be shocked that her first kiss wasn't the man that she ended up marrying.
Perfect.
But yeah, but we don't know for sure that they like kissed. Okay. It's just they fell in love and they were lovers for a while, whatever that may have been at the age that she was. She was only like 17, I think. So who knows? But Gustav Klimt himself said of her, "You're a rare, unusual kind of girl, but why do you do this, that, and the other just like everyone else?" She was initially interested in him, but desire cooled soon after, and they did remain friends until his death. The next man that comes into the picture, we'll be talking a lot about the men in her life because that's what we know the most about. Fair. But the next was Alexander von Zemlinsky. He began studying composition with her in the autumn of 1900, and they fell in love but kept their relationship a secret because it was a very like teacher-student relationship.
Again, that's scandalous by today's standards.
Yes, definitely. And she teased him a lot apparently about his like ugly features, saying she could have 10 others to replace him. So they had like a very weird relationship. She also would make some like anti-Semitic comments to him. But I like looked it up and it's kind of weird because she would repeatedly like have relationships and even went on to marry multiple Jewish men. So like historians are kind of like, she wasn't anti-Semitic. Like she fled Nazi Austria later, like that we'll talk about and everything. So it's like she didn't have like anti-Semitic beliefs at her core, but apparently society at the time was just very anti-Semitic, and so they would make like jokes about things like that all the time, and she was societally like that. So kind of interesting, but kind of adds to the complicated nature of her.
Yeah, like I guess past. It's good that like at her core, you know, she didn't put things where her mouth was, but like, you know.
Yeah, but it's like weird that we have these recorded sentences that she would say where it's like, oh, that's
don't say that.
Nice. Yeah. Like, don't say that. So, yeah. Apparently, her family didn't approve of Zemlinsky as a suitor because he was poor and an artist and all of that. But he was
oldest time.
But he was very encouraging of her composition. So he like really helped develop that which was very uncommon at the time for women to be able to go into composing instead of just being pianists and musicians. But shortly after, she met Gustav Mahler. And in the month of November, while still in a relationship with Zemlinsky, she started an affair with Mahler. And then by December, they were engaged. But it wasn't until she wrote to Zemlinsky about her engagement that it was formally announced. So she got engaged but didn't break it off until right before it was publicly announced.
Yeah. Okay.
But Alexander von Zemlinsky had talked about her and said, "I want you with every atom of my feeling," at one point too. So like these men, I cannot explain, they're obsessed with this woman.
They
like every single man, they loved her. And probably the one who loved her the most, arguably, would be Gustav Mahler, her first husband. He was 19 years her senior and the director of the Vienna court opera. He was, however, not interested in her composing abilities at all, and even wrote a very, very long, detailed letter in which he told her explicitly before their marriage that she must give up her own musical work in order to play the part of his loving companion and understanding partner.
Wow. I didn't know this.
Some scholars are like, no, he didn't outright forbade it. He just like said that he would prefer not to.
He just said it.
Yeah. He just said, no, you shouldn't do this. Wow. So, yeah, like obviously it was common at the time for women to kind of give up all passions of career and anything when they got married. So it's like not crazy that he said that, but at the same time, like he expressly went out of his way to be like, no, you will not compose, specifically like compose. And she agreed to it, but there's some quotes about it and from her journals where she said, "I have been firmly taken by the arm and led away from myself. And my heart stood still, give away my music, the thing I have lived for till now."
Wow.
Yeah. So it was not an easy decision, but at the same time, I don't think she really had a choice. Her parents were like, yep, this is the guy. She was a young girl. He was 19 years her senior. What are you to do when all of society tells you this is what you will do? You don't really have much of an option. With him, she had 2 daughters, Maria Anna, who ended up dying of scarlet fever or diphtheria, and Anna, who would later become a sculptor. So the art is just carrying on down the generations. But she, of course, became severely depressed after Maria's death and began an affair with the young architect Walter Gropius, who is another extremely famous name. I cannot even stress how famous some of these men are in the art world. This is like nuts.
That's amazing.
It's like Gustav
She's like collecting them.
And Walter Gropius? Like, what do you mean?
And I know Mahler. I'm like, and Gustav Mahler? My goodness.
Yeah. It's crazy. So he would later go on to become the head of the Bauhaus School of Art. Like,
oh, so we've talked about him.
Yes,
I just don't remember his name. Okay, whoa.
Yeah. Yes. The head of the Bauhaus, like, very, very famous man. But she met him during her rest while she was at a spa. And Gustav was devastated by their relationship withering apart and her having this extramarital affair. And so he went and talked to his good friend Sigmund Freud in August to seek advice. And Sigmund Freud, we don't have recordings of the like actual conversation that they had or anything, but it's believed that he basically told him, look, your wife had this musical career and passion and you stifled it, and that's probably causing her to seek extramarital affairs because you're not letting her explore her creativity within your marriage, because that's what he immediately started rectifying when he tried to get her back.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe the first recorded good advice from Sigmund Freud.
That That's crazy.
Yeah.
Good read, Freud. Good read.
I know. He's like, maybe she's depressed because she wanted to be an artist and you told her no.
Maybe you stopped the thing she loved the most and that is affecting things.
Mm-hmm.
Go out on a limb here.
And during this time, Gustav Mahler actually wrote to her, to live for you to die, Alma. So, like, impassioned letters of wanting their life to take a better turn and get her out of this whole emotional crisis. So, Gustav began to take serious interest in Alma's musical compositions and took promotional actions. He edited some of her songs, and upon his urging and under his guidance, she prepared 5 of her songs for publication, and they were actually issued in 1910 by Gustav's own publisher, Universal Edition. However, shortly after, in 1911, Gustav fell severely ill with an infection related to a heart defect that had been diagnosed several years earlier, and he passed away shortly after.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So they reunite, they rectify it all, and then he dies.
Oh, that's very sad.
Yeah. It's really terrible, actually.
I mean, at least some of her songs got published.
Yeah, her songs did get published. And she ceased composing for a short time. I'm trying to remember. So, like, as a composer herself, we talked about she played piano from childhood. She mentions that she first attempted composing at age 8 and then studied composition with Joseph Leiber, then met Zemlinsky, began composition lessons with him, then stopped when she was engaged to Gustav Mahler. And then until this time, she had composed or sketched around 20 piano pieces and a small number of chamber music works and a scene from an opera. And then she briefly resumed composing in 1910, stopped in 1915, a few years after Gustav Mahler had died. And so around that, they don't really have a good chronology of her compositions because she didn't date her manuscripts. Many of them were destroyed. We have to remember that this is also right before World War II, which she does end up having to flee Europe. So we don't know how many of them got lost. Music isn't something you would really pack with you as you like fled the country to get away from Nazi Germany coming in. But we have a total of 17 songs of her that survive. And 14 were actually published during her lifetime. So that's pretty cool that 14 of them were published while she was still alive. In 1910, 1915, and 1924. And then 3 additional songs were discovered in manuscripts posthumously. So that's kind of what we have about her music, because after all of this, she stops composing for the most part.
Part of me feels like, is there some random home in Austria, like some attic, that there's a bunch of her sheet music, you know? Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's possible it just got destroyed over the years, you know, at this point it's very old paper, but like, hey, we've heard crazier stories that we've talked about of art being discovered. Yeah. So
no, it would not be that
possible.
Shocking, actually, for a lot of things to turn up at some point as people begin. Well, we've even mentioned in a lot of our newsletters that like lots of Nazi stolen art is turning up now. People are finding it at thrift stores where some descendants have donated it, not knowing that what they had was priceless art that was stolen during World War II. Yeah. And then they're recovering a lot of it. So
crazy.
It's possible. Crazier things have happened. Also, a lot of it's being published now and like having orchestra renditions and being performed and everything, which is really cool. So she's getting like a little bit of a renaissance. So right after Gustav Mahler's death, she met an Austrian painter and writer, Oskar Kokoschka. And this is like the shortest relationship and one of the craziest ones I've ever heard. This relationship is insane. So he had a very volatile personality, and the relationship was like considered an affair because she was supposed to be in mourning as like a widow.
Oh, yeah.
So technically it was like considered cheating on her husband that she got in a relationship with this guy like a year after her husband's death. So everything read like extramarital affair, and I was like, he was dead. Like, but
it was too
considered
soon.
Yeah, it was too soon.
Wow.
And she was supposed to be this deeply mourning widow. And so it was the talk of the town that they were breaking all of the rules. He has this painting called The Bride of the Wind that depicts the two of them together, but it has him as like a skeleton and her as like this beautiful woman. So it's like, I don't know, it's supposed to be some example of how he felt in the relationship or something. But their relationship had so much jealousy and instability and everything surrounding it. Alma eventually ended it. And distraught from the breakup, Kokoschka commissioned a life-sized doll in her likeness from the artist Ermine Muse. And this attracted public attention because he would first off, he insisted that it be anatomically accurate. He spent months on the design, and then he would take it with him in public to like the opera and other places, like as a replacement for her, I guess. This like anatomically correct doll.
I don't like it. I don't like that.
It's so weird.
That is not romantic.
No, it's not. And so obviously it attracted public attention because everyone's like, what the heck is he doing? Eventually, he ended up destroying the doll at a party. I don't know if it was like kind of like a seance ritual situation or if they just got really drunk and like threw it in a bonfire.
Oh my gosh.
But they destroyed the doll, and then he enlisted in the Austro-Hungary War.
He put himself in timeout. That's what he did.
Yeah.
He said, all right, my bad. Let me go serve my country real quick. Like, to make up for that.
It's also rumored apparently that he kept like this blood-stained cloth of hers from like a failed pregnancy. So like he was a weird dude. Like, okay. And years later, she would publish some of his passionate letters in her memoirs and edited collections, kind of showing just like how obsessed he was with her and like his emotional dependence on her. Yeah. So kind of like taking back the power a little bit.
Crazy. Yeah.
Like, publishing these love letters. He said of her, "What you are, I am. If you turn from me, I am once again like no one and have no world." So very traumatic.
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah. So luckily that relationship was brief. And then she went back to Walter Gropius.
Oh,
and
good.
Those earlier days together, he wrote, "These days were one big symphony of love, from the most extreme adagio to a roaring ferocio." I think I'm saying that right. So yeah, lots of musical metaphors there for him, but beautifully said. She resumed contact with him, and he was actually also serving in combat at the time, but they married on August of 1915 when he was on one of his military leaves in Berlin. They actually ended up having a daughter together, but she died of polio at age of 18. So much death in this time period. I don't know how anyone stood it. Like the fact that people had children that survived into adult age is amazing.
An impressive feat. Yeah.
Yeah. Genuinely. Like everyone died. And their daughter actually had a violin concerto dedicated to her from Alban Berg called In Memory of an Angel. So that was kind of sweet. And then Alma became pregnant shortly after and gave birth to a son, Martin Karl Johannes Gropius. And Gropius at first believed that the child was his, but then come to find out, Alma was having an affair with Franz Werfel. And that became public knowledge around Vienna that she was having this affair. And so then he wasn't so sure whether or not the child was his. So then Alma and Gropius agreed to a divorce. And sadly, at the time, her son, who had been born prematurely, developed hydrocephalus and died at 10 months old. So another lost child.
That's tragic.
Yep. And divorce was not common at the time. So you can imagine the scandal of all of this when she's now divorced and her
affair. She's had 2 husbands.
Yep. And now another affair is sweeping through the towns of Vienna with everyone talking about her. So she was quite the talk of the town. I'm sure the gossip columns had a field day with everything that was going on in her life. So then Franz Werfel is next. And he wrote of her, "She is one of the very few magical, enchanting women that exist."
I want someone to write that about me.
I know. I'm like, man, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So Walter Gropius had military duties that are keeping him absent, and so she met and began an affair with the Prague-born poet and writer Franz Werfel in the fall of 1917. They began openly living together after the divorce. Oh, the shock and scandal. However, she postponed marrying him until 1929, after which she took the name Alma Mahler Werfel. And then in 1938, following the annex of Austria into Nazi Germany, which has a very fancy word for it that I cannot pronounce. So basically, when the Nazis took over Austria, Alma and Werfel, who was Jewish, was forced to flee Austria for France. And so they were able to get out of Austria, luckily in time. They were living on the French Riviera from the summer of 1938 until the spring of 1940. But then French occupation happened. And you have the deportation of the Jews and everything happening into Nazi concentration camps. So they're no longer safe in France. And they're trying to immigrate to the United States, but you can't get out at that time. It was like blocked, obviously. Like you couldn't just leave the country. They weren't allowing that. And so they were contacted by Varian Fry, an American journalist and emissary of the Emergency Rescue Committee that was aiding. It was a private organization that was aiding refugee intellectuals and artists to try and get them out of the countries at the time, like trying to protect anyone that they could. And so they had to travel on foot across the Pyrenees into Spain, like across the Pyrenees mountains on foot, like very Sound of Music.
I was just going to say, like, this is giving me Sound of Music vibes, but yes.
To get out of France into Spain in order to avoid the French border officials. And then from Spain, they traveled to Portugal, stayed there for a little while, and then boarded a boat and headed to New York City before arriving there. So literally fleeing the country in order to get out so that, you know, they could continue to live and not have to deal with everything that was happening there. They settled in Los Angeles for a while, where Alma continued her role as a hostess, bringing together a bunch of artists and intellectuals. And Werfel, who had enjoyed moderate renown in the U.S. as an author, ended up achieving popular success with his novel The Song of Bernadette and the science fiction novel Star of the Unborn, which was published after his death. And Werfel, who had experienced serious heart problems throughout his exile, died of a heart attack in California in 1940. So established some moderate success as an author, but then sadly also passed away. In 1946, Mahler Werfel became a U.S. citizen, and several years later, she moved to New York City, where she remained a cultural figure. They would use her a lot as like a reference for Gustav Mahler, which makes sense. Like he had already passed away. She was live and she was in the United States. So they would talk a lot about how she was a champion of his music. And Leonard Bernstein stated in Charles Eliot Norton lectures that she had attended some of his rehearsals. Benjamin Britten considered her to be a living link to both Mahler and Alban Berg, who was another Austrian composer, and dedicated his Nocturne for tenor and small orchestra to her. And when she moved to New York, she purchased 4 small condominiums in a house on the Upper East Side and lived herself on the 3rd floor and used one apartment as a living room and the second as a bedroom. So obviously she was pretty well off because
she was doing
she
fine.
was living in 4 brownstones in New York City. Something that's interesting, scholars actually have this thing they call the Alma problem. I don't know how often it's used, but it's in reference to her as kind of the idea that she was an archivist and a narrator of her own story. So the fact that like she outlived her husband and so many of her famous husbands by so many years that she kind of got to choose how the story was told. Yeah. And like could even edit it or suppress it or alter it if she wanted to. And in a lot of ways, I feel like history has turned her into a villain. A lot of people will say that she ruined Gustav Mahler's life, that she was the worst thing that ever happened to him. To be honest, it doesn't really seem like that. Like, from what I told you, that's all we have of their relationship. So it doesn't, like, she cheated on him, but then he, like, tried to win her back, and they ended.
And things were good.
Happy. Yeah.
Interesting.
But a lot of people will, like, complain that she edited letters after his death, but it's, like, it's also her story, so it's kind of a complicated thing where it's, like, yeah, but it was her relationship. If she didn't want it to be told, then she had the right to, like, not tell it.
That's true.
So it's kind of a complicated issue. And one thing that's interesting too is they often accuse her of turning herself into more of a muse than she deserves, saying that, like, she made herself seem like more of an inspiration to a lot of these men than just a relationship.
Like, she gave herself the credit for some of their, like, artistry that maybe we don't know because we can't talk to the men and ask them.
Which I know also, once again, don't know how true that is. Like, these men clearly, from their letters and everything, were obsessed with her. Like,
true.
Obsessed with her. And so we know from history that a lot of men who have obsession with women will, like, write a lot of things or paint a lot of things about them. And by her acknowledging that, is that her turning herself into more of a muse or just stating a fact? So I don't know. But
either.
That's what's considered the Alma problem, of her being able to do what she wants with her own history, even though her husband was famous. So, yep. Apparently, out of the 350 letters he wrote to her, she suppressed around 200 and only published 159. So that's, like, one thing where people are like...
I do, like you said, though, I do feel like people have the right to decide what is published if...
Exactly.
You know...
we can't all be Eliza Hamilton. We can't all publish all of the letters, regardless of how it makes things look.
And, like, I understand, like, having, like, the curiosity for, like, a composer you're really interested in, or musician or artist, but, like, we don't, like, have a right to those letters. Like, I think it is whoever, like, has his estate after he's dead, like, that is their call to make, I think. So,
and it was letters he wrote to her. So I'm like, she's kind of allowed to do whatever she wants with them. Yeah, I don't know. Becomes kind of the ongoing discussion about, like, well, what if... I think we even talked about this with Emily Dickinson. She wanted all of her letters and poems destroyed.
She wanted them destroyed,
and they weren't. And then it's like, well, we're so glad we have them.
Yeah, thank goodness. But also, this is not what she wanted.
Yeah, but then also you just feel a little bit guilty because it's like, well, she would have maybe hated this.
Yeah.
So kind of that ongoing discussion of, like, well, history is written by flawed people, and
truly
they get to kind of choose how it's
what we see, what we know.
Yeah.
Great point.
And that's probably their right. But her story has also inspired a lot of things, obviously, because her life is crazy. So there was some songs that's been written. A treatment of her life was presented at the Bruce Burford film Bride of the Wind. Extracts from her diaries have been published. The Artist's Wife by Max Phillips in 2001 tells her story from the afterlife, focusing on her complicated relationships. Like I talked about, the book Ecstasy is a novel written about her life. And that one's actually by a woman, and she kind of dives into a lot of the complicated relationships, I think, from a different perspective than a lot of other historians have. So that's kind of fun. And then there's also, like, a stage adaptation of, like, all of her compositions. I can't remember the name of it, and it wasn't on Wikipedia. But they, like, took all of her music compositions and, like, put it together in a thing with, like, also, I think, scenes from her life and stuff like that, too. So very cool. But yeah, she actually ended up passing away in December of 1964.
Wow.
In New York City. So yeah, that life is a long and insane one to imagine, basically growing up in Austrian notoriety and then dying in the 60s in New York City.
Owner of 4 brownstones. Like, that's great. That's
Yep. So yeah, that is her. That's Alma Mahler.
Yeah, I cannot, like, I didn't realize this. And I knew her name because, you know, like in college, I had a fascination with women composers. So I like looked them up. I knew she had composed. I obviously knew she was Gustav Mahler's wife, but I did not know any of this. So
Yeah.
what a treat.
I
What a treat
know.
this now is.
It's exciting, huh? And it was fun, like finding such a controversial and like
Mm-hmm.
interesting character in like, yeah, so much fun to read about her and everything. And from what I've heard, a lot of the novels and stuff are very good.
I
And the
was gonna
parody
say,
song,
I feel like I need to look
yeah,
up all of this art that is based around this woman. It seems like there's a gold mine
definitely.
there.
Yes. And that parody song was actually really funny, even though it was only
Ooh.
about the men she dated. So yeah, Tom
Still good.
Lehrer in his song Alma. It was funny. It's
That's
worth a
funny.
listen.
Absolutely will be listening. Well, thank you
Mm-hmm.
for bringing this woman's story into my life. Cannot wait
Mm-hmm.
to dive into it more. And thanks everyone for listening today. We have our merch available on our website, of course, as we
Yes.
always do. Stauney's repping our Hysterical Society hoodie. I was just thinking, I saw you post it on our story, and I was like, man, I want a cream one. That's a good
I
color to
know.
have.
I like your pink
Gonna have to
one too.
purchase
I was
another one.
thinking about
I
that too. How I
I
like
do
the
love the
pink
pink
one.
one as well. Yeah, a lot of great
Yep.
colors, I will say.
Yes.
Come say hi on Instagram, come watch us on YouTube, and subscribe, like, review, all of that. And we'll be back next Monday with another episode.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.